Awesome. Well, good afternoon, and thank you so much for joining me this evening.
Absolutely. I'm happy to be here.
So tell me your name and what do you do?
My name is Rachel Kelley, and I am an associate general counsel at Facebook, which actually just today we announced our new company name, and it is Meta. So I'm an associate general counsel for Meta.
What?
Yeah. Like we announced it maybe 4 or 5 hours ago.
What?
Yeah. So the apps, the name of the apps, those are not changing. They will be Facebook, as you know, Facebook to be, Instagram, as you know, Instagram to be. But the overall company name is now Meta, META.
And what does that stand for?
Meta is short for like metaverse. If you've been like tuned in to some statements that Mark Zuckerberg has made about like the future of the internet and how people will come together and collaborate and partner going forward. Specifically, I think as we start talking about connecting people and connecting communities over the next 5 to 10 years, we've seen in the last year and a half, almost 2 years, how we've been able to connect virtually. And so it builds a lot around that. Like I'd be able to play a tennis match with a friend of mine that's in Singapore, which is like fantastic and amazing. It's all in this like augmented reality space, but it's really cool. And I'm sure there'll be some more communications about that coming out here in the next several weeks.
See, that's what happens when I'm interviewing all day. I'm a news junkie. So I'm like, I didn't get to see Lester's like my best friend, one of my best friends. And so I didn't get to see him this evening because I literally just got off of another interview, because you know how you guys are. You wait till the last minute, and so I've got interviews until 9 o'clock tonight.
Oh, bless you.
So, hey, we're getting it done. It doesn't matter. You mission focused. So, wow, that's amazing. That's amazing. Wow. I mean, I've definitely had an opportunity to connect, to talk to and interview a lot of amazing folks, especially this. I mean, our first one was amazing as well, but this one even more. I mean, it's like every year we get better and better. It's just
that's wonderful.
It really is. I mean, just to see the caliber of of the folks that are out there doing this work.
Yeah.
I mean, this is amazing. And what it also shows is, just the vast variety of where you can go with different professions, right? Because I mean, we've got a guy he's a lawyer, but he works for Futures Command, the Army.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And so, it's amazing, just amazing. I mean, you guys are just,
the sky's the limit.
It really is. It really is.
Yeah.
I love that. I love that. So, so tell us, where were you born and raised?
So I am originally from Birmingham, Alabama. You may hear it a little bit. You may hear my accent a little bit as I talk. So born and raised there. I went to the University of Alabama for undergraduate school, went to law school at Texas Southern, Thurgood Marshall School of Law in Houston, and actually made my way back to Alabama after law school, practiced there for several years before coming back to Texas, originally to Dallas, still in private practice at the time. And then I moved to Austin in 2018 to take on a role with Whole Foods Market, and was with Whole Foods for almost 3 years before going to Facebook, now known as Meta.
That's amazing. Well, I'm from a little small town called Monroeville. It's like below Montgomery, and
I know exactly where you're talking about. Yeah.
I went to the University of South Alabama, way down.
Okay.
Yeah. So.
Wow.
Small
world.
Yeah. We'll have to watch it, because my son said every time I start talking to my family from Alabama, I start talking funny.
Yeah. You know what? It's in your blood, right? Like, and so usually when I am introducing myself to people, I just go ahead and like get that out of the way. Like, look, you're gonna hear the accent. It's part of who I am. I have grown to love it. It will not change. It doesn't matter where I live. And so I just tell people, look, if you get a y'all, every now and again. Again, it's just my roots coming out. You can take the girl out of Alabama, but you can't take the Alabama out of the girl.
Oh my God. And I love this. I love to tell people, and they'll say, "Oh, where are you from?" I'm like, "From Alabama." They're like, "No, no, no, really, where are you from?" "I'm from Alabama."
Yeah.
And I love being from Alabama because,
Yes.
I mean, it's the small town values and,
Mhm.
I mean, there's lots and stuff that's, that happened in Alabama that, I just never experienced. And I think,
Absolutely.
it's, I guess that's what anywhere, but I'm like, I love it. I love being from there, and,
Yep.
I love the dirt, red
I,
dirt.
I love the dirt. I feel the exact same way. I mean, I can remember being in my early 20s, moving out of Alabama for the first time, living somewhere else. And I'd get all these questions about what it's like to live in Alabama. Like, oh, so you guys have dirt roads. And I'm like, what? Like, I grew up in a city my entire life. I've lived in a city. Like, I have no idea what you're talking about. Dirt country roads and seeing cows along the side of the road. Like, that has totally not been my experience. And I mean, I think we do have to acknowledge the history that is
Yeah.
in the state of Alabama. But gosh, it's come such a long way. And I visit home quite often. My entire family is still there in Birmingham. And so I'll actually be heading home next week to visit some family then. But like, the city, the state has transformed immensely, even since I left.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's, it's a different city, but it definitely makes you appreciate, especially when you go, when you travel different places. I'm like, oh, I think I'm glad to be from Alabama.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
know. So, yeah, I get people, like, don't mess with that. Hold up, don't go there.
Right,
Don't
right.
go there.
Mhm.
So tell me what it's like or describe what it's like being a Black female lawyer.
Wow. I'll be honest, that's an incredibly complex question that requires a complex answer. And I think it depends on probably which stage in my career you're asking about. I think for me, when I first graduated law school, starting out in private practice, I started out in private practice in Alabama. There were not very many lawyers who looked like me. There weren't a ton of women lawyers, but in addition to that, there were also not very many Black women lawyers at large firms. And that was a really challenging experience, being a young Black lawyer in Alabama, trying to find your way, trying to find mentors, not even just mentors, but trying to find sponsors, people who will take you under their wings, and they will promote you both in your firm and outside of your firm. I was lucky in that I was able to identify 1 to 2 women who looked like me, but in addition to that, also people who didn't look like me, who took a really vested interest in seeing my career grow. And even though it's been several years since I worked with them, continue to be a part of my inner network of sponsorship and mentorship. As I've grown in the law, as I've grown in my practice, it's become increasingly easier to identify mentors, to identify sponsors, since that time. But gosh, I think now we're sort of like, we're on this train, right? Like, we've got what we need. I think you continue to require that sort of sponsorship, but now we're sort of set. Like, those foundational elements of what you needed when you first graduated, you've got those under control, and now you're just growing your career.
What advice would you give to your younger self?
I think there are a couple things. Um, I have a favorite quote, and you probably can't read it, but it's back there on that board. And it says, hard work beats talent when talent doesn't work hard. Um, I've considered myself decently talented, but what I know for sure is that I'm a hard worker. And every time I chose to lean into working hard, I reap the benefits tenfold, right? I can't rest on my laurels. I can't rest on the things that got me here. I have to continue to push towards the mark. And that is really, I'd say, what I lean into when I think about how I've gotten to where I am now. It's been that I've worked incredibly hard to get here, and the work isn't over, right? Like it continues well beyond this point. I think the other thing for me would be to show up authentically. I remember being a young lawyer and being terrified that not only was I was the first Black woman at the firm that I was working with at the time. I just remember being terrified to show up authentically, like to talk about what school I went to, what inner city school I went to, being like, oh, is this too much information? I can recall going to the nail salon and wanting to get my nails painted a nude color, but being concerned that if I came to work the next day with fingernail polish on, I would be viewed in a certain way. And I think back on that time now, and I'm almost ashamed that I let my work environment dictate my authenticity. So I think it's so important for us to show up exactly as who we are every single day, every single time, because we as a society only get better when people feel compelled to bring their whole selves to the table.
There's a few questions. Oh, well, how do you get back to the community?
It's been a requirement, I guess you could say, of mine since graduating law school, even before then, to give back to the community. I grew up in inner city Birmingham. We didn't have a lot growing up. And so I've always done big brothers, big sisters. I've always given back to domestic violence shelters. I donate consistently. I feed members of the community. And then most recently, I've become involved with Casa of Travis County. You want to re-record that?
That last part about the Casa of Travis County, you can start from there.
Okay. And most recently, I've begun dedicating my time to the children who are impacted and are now part of a system through the Casa of Travis County.
I took some questions from Tim Ferriss that I thought were really cool. One of them is, what purchase of $100 or less has positively impacted your life over the last 6 months or recent memory? Something you purchased that's less than $100.
I recently purchased a whiteboard. And it's not the kind of whiteboard that you typically see in a big corporate environment, but it's probably like 30 by 15 or so, but I put it immediately in front of my desk and quick jot down notes, go right on that whiteboard. I love the idea of being able to cross things off of my to-do list. I mean, one, I'm a list person. If you could see my desk here, I've got sticky notes everywhere because that's how my brain works. Although I live in the technology age, I work for a huge technology company, I am still very much so pen to paper. So having a whiteboard in front of me, being able to create a to-do list and cross things off, nothing gives me better satisfaction than that.
I clicked it the wrong time. If you had a gigantic billboard anywhere in the world and you get a message out to millions or billions of people, what would that message be and why?
It's a great question. So I think it would be, for me, the message that it doesn't have to be perfect to be effective. So often we wait for the perfect timing, right? It's just not the perfect time. So often we wait for the perfect opportunity, the perfect job, the perfect partner, the perfect amount of money. And we miss out on so much that the world has to offer because we're waiting for perfection. There really is no such thing as perfection. I think that the opportunity that we need to seize is the one to jump in and just get started. It'll work out, but you've got to start. There was this saying that my grandmother used to say when I was younger, and that was simply, nothing beats a failure but a try. And so waiting for perfection, often we just fail to jump because there's no such thing as perfection. But that's the only time you fail, is when you don't jump.
Girl, you better preach. See, that's what I'm talking about right there. Woo. Man. Woo. What is one of the best or most worthwhile investments you've ever made? And
I missed, like, the audio cut out.
what is the best or most worthwhile investment you've ever made? And it could be anything.
So I would say the investment in my health. I think the pandemic really clarified for a lot of people how important physical and mental health is, right? So, start of the pandemic, remember, we all thought, okay, we'll be at home for 2 to 4 weeks and we can go back to our regularly scheduled program. You like to work out at the gym, you go back to the gym. You work out with a trainer, you go back to working out with the trainer. Well, I guess it was around the middle of last summer, it became really clear that we will be here for quite some time. And I invested in a workout bike. I needed to be able to move my body. And that has become so important. And what started out as something that was solely for its physical benefit, and so that I wouldn't roll out of quarantine, right? After eating so many cookies and donuts, because we all got into the quarantine baking, it became something that I needed to do for myself for mental clarity. I don't know a single lawyer, I don't know a single employment lawyer who was not inundated with work over the pandemic. I mean, we went from working, 10 to 12 hours a day to what felt like sometimes 16 to 18 hours a day. I needed those 45 minutes for myself to clear my brain. I mean, we were on constant go, 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 go. And I started to start my mornings that way. I have to start, and that is my time. I don't look at my phone. I don't read emails. I don't take calls. It's my time to invest in myself, both physically and mentally.
I'm like, shh, shh, don't let anybody else hear you say that. Exact opposite.
Man, I swear it has been a saving grace. It's been a saving grace. Now, I'll be honest. I may still roll out of quarantine, right? Hadn't lost what I thought I would, but I feel great. I feel great. That was the best investment that I could have done for myself over the last year or so.
Well, this is another one of Tim Ferriss's questions that I kind of took from him was, I thought it was interesting. What's an unusual habit or absurd thing that you love?
Chewing gum. And it's a terrible habit. And I've had it for, as long as I can recall. I used to love bubble yum as a kid, and I would beg my mother to buy me bubble gum. And it has continued on into adulthood. Luckily, I do not chew gum during meetings. I do not chew gum while taking calls, but virtually any other time, I am probably chewing gum. And it's a terrible habit.
I know. Well, it's only terrible if your mouth is wide open, right?
Right. No. I've luckily figured out a way to avoid that.
Oh
Just
my
don't
God.
chew it.
Right, exactly. In
Right.
public, I mean, oh my God. Yeah, we were watching the what is it? The World Series the other night, and they panned
yeah.
the crowd, and there was a Black woman. She was just like,
Yep.
"Oh, man,
Yep.
she's gonna
I
like
know.
see that." I'm like,
Terrible. It's
"Hmm."
terrible. I try not to do it in public, but literally, if I'm not like on a call or in a meeting, I'm probably chewing gum. Yeah.
And what have you been over the last few years? What have you gotten better at saying no to?
I've definitely gotten better at saying no to things that are are outside the bounds of like my time constraints. So again, I think as I mentioned earlier, being in the pandemic really pushed the boundaries of being able to say no, because your time, I think from a lot of employers' perspective, was just at their disposal. What else are you doing? Because you can't leave the house, right? You can't go out to dinner. You can't go and socialize with friends. So of course you have nothing to do but work. And so I've gotten increasingly better over the last year and a half, almost 2 years, saying, even if I have nothing else to do but sit in my favorite chair and unwind for the day, that's a boundary for me. So you have to be able to say, this is a boundary. I need time for myself. That goes back to giving yourself the mental capacity, doing things that engage your mind and your body. And I've gotten much better at saying that. There was a time when that was not the case for me, especially being a lawyer. I think you have clients who call all the time, day and night. Their emergency is, of course, your emergency, and you have to be responsive. We've got to learn how to put some guardrails in place for that. You cannot be there in the way that you need to be for your clients, or for anyone else for that matter, if you can't be there for yourself. I can't hear you.
When you feel overwhelmed or unfocused or have lost your focus, what do you feel? How do you get back to center?
It's a great question. Actually had a bout of that this week, and I called my best friend. I said, I am just feeling overwhelmed. And she goes, all right, take a break, turn on Spotify, and turn on the Gap Band channel on Spotify. Take 10 minutes and dance in your office. And that was it. That did it. Sometimes it's just a matter of disconnecting and doing something that is high energy to bring you back down to center. And it works every time.
That's cool. How has failure or a challenge or apparent failure set you up for later success?
Can you repeat the question?
How has failure, a challenge, or apparent failure set you up for later success?
So I think there's this quote by Winston Churchill. I actually keep it here at my desk, and it says, success is not final and failure is not fatal, but it's the courage to continue that counts. Naturally, I think we've all been faced with a number of different challenges, both personally and professionally. And I think it's in that moment, the ability to grieve maybe what was, to be upset about what happened, but the acknowledgement that tomorrow we get up. We do not stay down. We get up, you take your moment, because I think it's really important to actually have the moment. You take your moment, but tomorrow you get up and we keep pushing forward. We really we don't have an option not to.
What have you gotten better? I'm not sure if I asked. What have you gotten better at saying no to?
Yeah, we asked that.
Okay, all right. There was one more on here. It's kind of similar, but what new belief, behavior, or habit has most improved your life? And you may have talked a little bit about it.
Yeah, I think it's, again, just the focus that I have now on my physical and mental health. In so many ways, I think, especially for quite some time, talking about like physical and mental health had been so taboo, right? And it's like, you know what, you can do anything, just keep going. But no, I think it's actually important that we take some time out to focus on those things. Again, we can't be everything for everybody if we're nothing for ourselves.
What's your superpower?
I think my superpower is my Southern charm. So going back to being raised in Alabama, you always hear all these colloquialisms, but the truth is, you really do get more bees with honey than you do with vinegar. And that is true in every area of your life. It is okay to be kind to people. It is okay. And oftentimes being kind, meeting people with a smile, looking people in the eye and getting to know them will always give you the results that you're looking for.
That's one of mine. I always say I call myself a Southern Belle. I'm like, I'm just glad.
Yeah.
And it's gotten me out a lot.
Right. It has. I mean, I'm talking traffic tickets, right? I can't tell you how many times, and it's like, I am so sorry. Yep. And then you hear that accent,
right?
It's like, oh, okay. And she's smiling. Yep. She's friendly.
Yeah,
everything.
It really does. Yeah, yeah. Admit your mistakes, and it's like, oh my God, I can't believe I just did that. It's like,
right. Yep.
Yeah. I pulled out in front of, you know how when you're driving down and it's like really congested. And so then they go to the side road, right? But you go through like the dirt, the grassy area. And I never, ever, ever, ever had done it. Never, ever, never.
Yeah.
And I did it this one time. And I said, that's why God is always like looking out, like, don't you ever do that again.
Yes.
As soon as I pulled in, guess who was behind me? The police.
Yep.
And so he came over and I was like, oh my God.
I am so sorry.
I swear to God. And I've never done this. And my son's like, Mommy, what did you do? I was like, oh my God, this is terrible. And so he was like, okay. He was like, you're good. He goes, but you're my first. So the next one won't get off.
You're like, I promise I will never do.
I will. And I never will. I never will.
Yeah.
Like, I'm done. That's what, that just shows you God doesn't want you to do things like that. It's like,
no,
it's not my thing. So who's your favorite person?
It would have to be my grandmother. She is incredibly smart and so witty. She is so witty. We celebrated her 90th birthday this summer. I flew to Alabama to spend that time with her, and she is smart as a tack. She holds all your secrets, and she gives some of the most amazing career advice, though she never went to college. She was not a professional, and she is the smartest woman that I know.
What are you most proud of?
You know, that's a tough question. Again, I grew up in Alabama, in a fairly impoverished part of the city. And you hear people say this all the time, but it was the truth for me as well. You didn't know that you were disadvantaged growing up, but you were. And it probably for me was not until I went to college that I recognized just how disadvantaged I was. But it is a mission of mine as I've grown professionally to give back to children who were like me, to children who grew up in single parent homes or in homes where their families didn't have a lot of money. They may not have had access to new school clothes at the start of the year, to kids who didn't know that college was an option for them, to kids like me who had never seen a lawyer growing up. It is a mission of mine. And I am so incredibly proud of not just what I've been able to accomplish, because that's really artificial. What I am proud of is that I get to be an example to people who look like me, to kids who were just like me and never saw it growing up. And I can look at them and say, we can do this together, because it requires community. It requires a village. It's not just seeing me that gives them the power and the encouragement to do it. It's actually me helping them along the way.
What do you see as your purpose in life?
I really think my purpose is to be a beacon to my community, to be a beacon to young women and girls, and to show them what is possible when you show up as you are, fully in your glory, authentically as you are, with your community behind you, with your story behind you. I think that's my purpose.
See, this is why, when I first started doing these, I didn't record them. And it was like, man, I mean, some of the things these guys were, and just the opportunity to talk to some of these folks. I mean, Wallace Jefferson, one of the first, the first Black Supreme Court justice, and he's so shy. And just talking to them and just listening to, I ask everybody the same questions, obviously, depending on, I run through some of them. I don't, I've got quite a few, but yeah. And I remember afterwards, he goes, man, I think you know me better than anybody in the world. I mean, you know how quiet he is. And he sent me a card. He sent me a card later and said, I just want to thank you. This was, it was a great experience. And, because a lot of times
he is such a nice guy.
He really is. And, because a lot of times they do this work and they're champions for us, right?
Right.
I mean, what you're doing, you're a champion for other Black girls and other Black people, right? And you're doing all this work for someone else, but then to know that people see you and that we also are, we're that we're rooting for you Because a lot of times, all it takes is that one person to act the
Yeah.
fool and say, oh, who she thinks she is, that whole thing.
Right.
And
Right.
I've learned to say, you know what, I am all that,
Yeah.
I really
Yeah.
am.
Mhm.
Because, I mean, a little girl from Alabama, right?
Yeah,
It's a lot.
absolutely.
So like, heck, I really am. And so I embrace it. I embrace it now. But,
Good.
and that's why I love talking to people like you guys who've accomplished, so much. And it's just really extraordinary, what the work that you guys do.
Thank you.
What is your favorite? Do you have a favorite book or a book you'd recommend?
I read so much. So one, I will say this. I read so I read so much. I think one of my more recent favorites is Becoming by Michelle Obama. It is a true story of resilience. It's a lot of our story, right? I think there's so many of us that can identify with her family. There's so many of us that can identify with living with other family members trying to make ends meet. So many of us that can identify with maybe growing up on what would be considered the south side of a city and commuting to a certain place because you are one of the talented, right? So many of us that can identify with feeling othered when going to these large institutions where people have told you you deserve to be there, and you get there and you feel like you don't deserve to be there, and you feel like you stick out like a sore thumb. Overcoming challenges, like she failed the bar exam the first time, but like yet she made it to this huge firm, and she ultimately builds this practice, and she builds these companies. Like, so many of us can identify with her story. So that would be one of my more recent favorites.
Did you share how you why you decided to go into law?
I did not.
Okay.
You want to hear that story? Okay. So going to law school was not on my radar. I wanted to be a journalist. And I tell this story all the time about it was not until I was in my junior year of college that I decided that I would pursue law school. Growing up, I'd been on several different debate teams. I've always been an avid reader. I've always been an avid writer. And so I thought journalism made sense, right? It would give me the opportunity to meet and talk with people. And again, being from Alabama, that's just something that we do. That's par for the course. And it would also give me an opportunity to read and write, research. So it was my junior year of college, and I had a professor who said that newspapers as we knew them and journalism as we knew journalism was dying. And I was devastated. Like, what will I do now? Because that was the option. I wanted to be a journalist, and I didn't want to be on TV. I didn't want to be on the news. I wanted to be a newspaper journalist, and I wanted to maybe Time Magazine, something like that. And so he said, it's really time for all of you to start considering what's option B. And I can remember going back to my dorm room and calling my mom, and I'm like, the professor says that we need to consider option B, and I have no option B. I've only ever wanted to be a journalist. What is option B? And she says, I've always thought you would be an amazing lawyer. And that was the catalyst. Unlike many of my peers who grew up being groomed for law school, that was not me. That was not my story. I started preparing for the law school entrance exam second semester of my junior year of college, which was well behind the majority of folks who were already preparing to go to law school. Thankfully, Texas Southern University, my alma mater, let me in. And it was really an incredible experience for me. I'd never been in an environment where I was taught by professors who looked like me. And I think that until you are in that environment, you don't recognize the richness and the value that really comes from that. I went to a predominantly white institution for undergraduate school. So I had no idea what it would be like to go to an HBCU. And I really credit my success to Thurgood Marshall School of Law.
Did you share what you liked most about your job?
I did not. For me, it is helping companies get it right. So I'm a labor and employment attorney, and I've been a labor and employment attorney for companies my entire career. And I've often been asked, how can you do that work? How can you represent these companies and defend them in these actions? And my response to that has always been, I help companies get it right. And I help my clients recognize when they've gotten it wrong, and I help them fix it. And so we need people like me in those roles, because companies don't always get it right, and we need to help them get there.
Yeah, and that's why they need you there. That's very true.
Absolutely.
What do you enjoy doing in your leisure time?
I love to read. I've always loved to read. Recently, I've also started asking myself this question, and it's, what do you want to learn next? As I'm figuring out how to spend my time, I think we've all had probably more time at home and away from socializing than we ever have. What do I want to learn next? So I spend a lot of time reading up on whatever that next thing is. You know, if I want to learn interior decorating, I spend time researching it. I spend time reading about it. I spend time watching videos about it. If it's learning more about the stock market, I do those same things. If I want to learn how to flip homes, I do those same things. I'm interested in construction. I read about it. I look at videos about it. But it's always premised with the question, what do you want to learn next?
So this is probably my last question. What does it mean to be chosen as a top 10 super lawyer?
It's such an honor, and it caught me by such a surprise to have received this award. But I think it's incredible, the mission of what we're doing here, right? And we are highlighting and we are spotlighting people to the community, letting folks know this is within reach. And you know it's within reach because of these people here. And it's such an honor to be selected and chosen as one of those beacons of light to the community.
Absolutely. So that was my last question. Is there anything else you'd like to share?
I think we've covered it.
I know, right?
I think we've covered it. Yeah.
I'm a blood type and everything now, right?
Right, exactly.
Yeah, we get that's what one of the guys, he was like, it's like, what is this, Oprah?
Right. I'm like, I hadn't even thought about this.
Yeah. He was, yeah. It's been interesting. This whole process is always interesting, just hearing different people and how they see the world. It's amazing. I'm talking to Judge Livingston next in about 5 minutes. So Yeah. So, and she's always been, and I didn't know her, but I met her at our first event, and she is hilarious. I don't know if you know her, but
Yeah.
she is
Yeah.
hilarious. She has really good sense of humor. I mean, oh my God. And she's actually retiring soon, so I'm really glad that we were
Oh,
able to get her on our list. But,
yeah,
but yeah,
definitely.
so like I said, that's all, and hopefully we'll see you on November 20th.
Yes.
I'm not sure if Dr. Alvin called you. He's been
Yes, he did call me. And I am still trying to run down who the appropriate contact is at
yeah, usually there's like a community liaison person. And I
mhm.
know, and I for the life of me, it might have been Apple's community liaison that we knew, but yeah, there's uh, I mean, and we try to, talk to them on your behalf, because, we let them
Yeah.
know how important this is, not just for you, but for their company, because,
Mhm.
the fact that, that they saw,
Yeah.
and they, they saw the value, and not only, that they chose a star, right?
Mhm,
We
mhm.
want to congratulate them as well. And that's what we always, because we want them to recognize that, like you said, we don't want you to be the last, right? And so
Yeah.
we want to show them that we support, what they're doing too. So and everybody, like I said, I was telling it was, I think, Elizabeth Wilson. I was on the phone with her just before you, and I was like,
Mhm.
they love to take credit for our success. Like, oh yeah,
Oh
I
yeah.
saw her and I knew she was, they
Yeah.
love
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
they
You're
love to
right.
take credit. So
You are absolutely right. Now, I do have a question. So, to the extent they say, all right, well, it's a little short notice
yeah,
for us. Like, are there individual
yeah,
tickets or they buy
yeah,
like,
yeah. There's
okay,
and what we tell them to that is Google
hmm
and 3M, and all these
hmm
other Cisco, all these other companies are going to be there. And so, it's important. And you're the only one, I think, from face. Maybe there's a
I
couple
think
more
there may be one other.
up and coming, maybe.
Yeah.
So, but that's why it's important. It's important, because the other piece is that, I know I started this journey trying to help more, more companies, find African American talent,
Mhm,
right? And
mhm.
so it's important for them to see all these people,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
'Cause it's not just, there's a lot of talent out there, and and then they, again, they appreciate you more too. But like
Right.
I said, you don't have to ask. We like to ask, because
hmm
because it's up to them, right? It's really up to
Sure.
them. But but we want to share why it's important for them to
Sure.
also celebrate you, because we think it's
Yeah.
important for them to celebrate you. And I mean, we've had some crazy attorneys, like Ed Fernandez. I don't know if you
Mhm.
know his story, but I mean, he was like he was raised on a cranberry farm in California. Because his parents were, I think they have like some type of Latino background or something.
Yeah.
And so he was like working on a cranberry farm.
I think I have heard his story. Yeah, it's
It's
pretty incredible.
insane. I mean, he's
Yeah.
such a good guy. He's such a good guy. But I mean, there's just so many things like that. There's just amazing. So,
Right.
but anyway, yeah. So hopefully, if you can help us run it down, I think, I don't know how far he's gotten, if he's figured it out,
Okay.
but yeah, but
Okay.
the tickets, and we try not to encourage the individual tickets just because of COVID, right? Because we
Yeah.
would like for you to be at a table with people that you know, and
That you know.
and
Yep.
you know what I mean? Because that way, her, and what kind of,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? You know
Yeah.
the people
Yeah.
that are there. And so it's helping to mitigate risk. And, we're trying to do that as much as possible.
Totally
But yeah,
understand.
but I mean, whatever help that we can offer, please let me know.
Okay. Okay.
We definitely want to do that. Cool.
Will
All right.
do.
Well,
Well, nice to meet
again,
you.
yeah, same here. And haven't seen, did you send me photos yet? Because
No,
okay.
I just got those back from Eric
Okay.
today.
Well,
So
I
as
think
soon
he
as
posted them online before I sent them
yeah,
to you.
right. Yeah, he did. He probably did. It looks like it.
Oh, yeah, but they look great. We were
Thank
talking
you.
like, wait a minute, which one? We were like, which one? Man, she rocking it. All right. Well, we'll see you on the 20th, and
Okay.
please stay safe.
All right. Thank you. You do the
Okay, we'll
same.
talk to you soon. Take care.
Okay. Bye-bye.